Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our introduction webinar for DentalCAD 3.3 Chemnitz. I'm Lucas Chardulo. I'm an application support engineer at exocad. I'm working out of our Boston office. I'll be presenting our material today. Joined by Dan Elsinger also. Hey Dan, how's it going?
Great. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Um, Also, application support engineer with the North American team of exocad, and I think Lucas and we're all very excited here at exocad to talk about the latest version that's coming. So, thanks for joining.
All right, Dan's going to be the chat partner for today. So if there are any questions that come up as we're going through the content here, just feel free to type in questions, and we will try to get those answered as soon as we can as we're going through. So looks like a lot of people are joining. We'll just get going through here. So we have quite a lot of information to go through. So this is an introduction webinar. So this is a shorter form. We're going to go through most of the new features of the software, and we're going to have the official longer form training webinars once the public release comes out in a little while. So those will be the ones that you'll need to join for the authorized trainer certificates. But this one is just to get you up and running. So we have the public prototype version out there. So this is just to get some introductory information about the features out there so you can start using it right away and testing it and giving us some feedback about it. Just a reminder, this webinar for internal use only, so please don't copy it. We will have a recording available within the next day or so in the secure area on our website, so you'll be able to access the recording there for your usage afterwards. So let's talk a little bit about what the prototype version is. So it's public prototype version. The main purpose of this is to get you, the resellers and partners, early access of the software to start testing it, right? So we just need to make a little disclaimer. It's not a finished version. There might be things that are still not working 100% in the software. So please test it, and this is your opportunity to give us direct feedback about what might be needed to be improved, what's not working quite right. A lot of you are in direct contact with their end users, and if you feel something still needs to be tuned a little bit before it's going to be a big hit with your customers, certainly let us know and give us some feedback about that. So you can send any issues, whether it's a suggestion or bug or anything that you find wrong with the software. You can use your respective support email for your region, so support@exocad or support-Americas if you're in that region, to get us that information and help us out with the version. All right, so for today's webinar, we're going to go through some slides about the new features and talk about a lot of the new stuff that's in there, and then we're going to go through a few cases afterwards and live demo some of the key features of the software. So like I said, this is an introduction webinar, so not everything that's new in the software is covered here, just kind of the key features that we picked out that are probably some of the most important goodies in this version. So cloud features, in the previous version, 3.2 LFCNA, we had AI cloud crown design. We had a ton of good feedback about that, and we continue to expand on the capabilities of that tool, right? So now you can do multiple crowns on the same case. For posteriors, you can do up to 3 adjacent crowns together, and then you can have multiple units scattered across the arch for the anteriors and posteriors mixed together. We continue to improve the TrueSmile photo and TrueSmile video tools that are in the software. So these, another tool that we're getting a lot of good feedback on. So I'm sure you've heard about this with the 3.2 LFCNA release, where you can take your mock-up design and have that embedded into the video or photo of the patient. So we continue to improve those tools and do some adjustments on the back end just to improve the quality of the outcomes for those tools in Smile Creator. Little video clip here, just in case you haven't seen this tool yet. So this is a video clip, the original video on the left, in our mock-up design of the patient on the right side. So the patient speaking and the design that we've done in Smile Creator is embedded in the video clip for patient presentation. The other functions in Smile Creator for Smile design with AI tools, so automatic photo alignment and automatic marking of the lip curve. Again, those sensor AI tools that continue to be updated on the back end to make those more accurate and user-friendly in the software. Core version updates. Symmetric tooth shape editing. So this is one that we'll take a look at today. So there's a new tool in tooth model placement for making adjustments, symmetric adjustments to the tooth setup. So there's a tool for anterior tooth setups and then a one-to-one adjustment tool for adjusting the contralateral of any other tooth on the arch. So this is just another enhancement in the tooth setup design process. So we'll take a look at that tool a little bit later. Instant anatomic morphing in chain mode. So this is pretty huge here. So chain mode, already a super useful tool. Once you get used to it, we've now incorporated the ability to use instant anatomic morphing, the tool where it's dynamically adjusting the occlusion of teeth as you're in chain mode. So we'll take a look at that also. Type ahead searching. The context menu in certain steps is getting pretty huge. So we keep adding tools and functions in the software. So a lot of times those menus are getting really long. So there's a search box up there. So if you have in your mind, maybe one or two keywords of the tool or setting that you're trying to find, you can just start typing it in the search menu, and it will start narrowing down your list based on your search function to find the tool that you're looking for. That's happened to me. Sometimes I'm staring at that list, for a little while and just trying to figure out, find where the tool is. So this will just make it a little easier to locate stuff on those menus. Inspira tooth libraries. This is a great addition here. So we're continuing to add Crown and Bridge tooth libraries that are included in the core version of the software. So we have more and more options there. So we have Inspira tooth libraries. So these are, you may have seen previously, not too long ago, we launched the Inspira denture tooth libraries. So these are Crown and Bridge libraries based off the same anatomy, just ported over to Crown and Bridge libraries. The cool thing about these is they can also be used for thimble bridges. So they have the cutback libraries, reduction libraries for thimbles, incisal, and labial ridges. So you have a lot more options in the software for those types of bridges and restorations. Select copied teeth. So when you get to the library selection tool, if you've done the tooth segmentation, you can have that option there that says copy patient teeth. So that will load the tooth models of the original tooth morphology of the patient if you would rather use that for the case for your design instead of loading a separate tooth library. Just prerequisite for that. So this option will show up if you've done the multi-tooth segmentation step prior to getting to your library selection step. You'll have that tool show up. Improved mesh editing. The mesh edit tool, we've added some features there, kind of adjusted the user interface a little bit just to make things a little easier to access, and added the capability of mesh bridging, meaning that you can fill in gaps where it's not a complete enclosed hole in the mesh. There's an open edge to it, so the software can now handle those situations and kind of estimate a mesh surface and fill in those gaps there. So just kind of improving the functionality of editing and repairing your scan data, hopefully without requiring another third-party tool. So increasing the functionality within the exocad environment. Implant module. Yeah, let's talk about the abutment design. So abutment module, it's probably one of the earliest modules in the software, so it's been around for quite a while. Super popular module for the software. Over the years, just minor tweaks were made to it, mainly with adding libraries. That was a major improvement over the years, just adding functionality through expanding the library base. However, based on feedback over the years and just to continue to make it more flexible and more efficient, we've kind of redesigned the core design functionality of the abutment module. So you'll see a lot of new tools in abutment design. So we'll take a look at that in a case today also. So a lot of these steps or improvements are based on feedback from you guys, so resellers and partners. So all that's been gone through, and key improvements were selected out of those to implement in the software to make a really cool abutment design module now. So here's a little screenshot of some of the new tools here. So when you get to that abutment design step, you have a new box there for abutment style. And so right away, it's generating a different type of proposal for the abutments. And then we have some new tools for adjusting the margin and different parameters of the abutment. So hopefully all this combined will make it so that we can design quicker abutment cases and just have generally nicer outcomes for abutment shapes there. If you are still tied to the older design version, so the legacy abutment design tools are still in there, so you can change to that selection once you get to that step. If you'd rather continue to work with the previous design step until you get used to the new stuff. This is one of my favorite improvements here. So this is also in the implant workflow. The component selection dialog at the scan body step. Gone are the days that we're staring at those long lists of hundreds of components and obscure part numbers trying to figure out what library that we need for the case. If anybody has seen exoplan, so this is similar to the component selection in exoplan. So it worked super well for implant parts. So we're like, let's see if we can bring this over and improve the situation in dental CAD. So now we have multiple ways of searching for parts. So we have a search box up there, and then you can select by manufacturer. There's different filter options that we can select here, and marking favorites. So it just makes that process of finding the parts that you need for the case a lot easier and more intuitive. So another look at some options here. So after you've selected a part there in the lower right corner of that selection dialog box, there's actually a 3D preview of the part that we're using, and you can rotate that, you can zoom in, so you can see the actual mesh of the part that you're looking at to help identify if that's the correct library that you need for the case. And then lower left corner, you have multiple tooth numbers all listed there in the same step. So those are, you can select the parts for each one prior to marking the scan body or doing the scan body alignment, or you can do it one by one, select one part, match the scan body. So you have some flexibility there of how you complete that step. All right, let's take a look at the bar module. I know everybody's been waiting for this. So split denture design workflow is now in the software. A ton of demand for this over the last few years. There's been competitive solutions out there, and people have figured out workarounds to do it in dental CAD, but now we have a dedicated workflow for these types of cases. So we're designing a wax up, so your teeth and gingiva together in a wax up design, and then we can automatically split that into a separate bar and anatomic top portion that fits over that. Bite split module. So in previous version 3.2 LFCNA, we've implemented using the tooth segmentation tool for bite splint, so we can automatically mark the perimeter margin of the bite splint. So now in this version, we kind of just take that a step further and just add some more tools and options in that dialog to help customize the shape of the byte splint and kind of accommodate more situations, just to automate some more scenarios that you might need to design a splint for. Articulator module. This is a pretty nice function here. There's a embedded workflow to align your models in the articulator using a 2D photo. So if you have a 2D photo of the patient that's already been aligned to your jaw scans through SmileCreator workflow, you can now use that photo to align the jaws in the articulator position. So in the screenshot there at the articulator jaw correction step, there's a 2D image tab there, and then click the button to perform 2D image alignment. And it'll take you through the steps there for that. Another virtual articulator added to the software. Cavo ProDar Evo 7 is now integrated in the software. So as with the other articulator models, we have a super high resolution, super detailed 3D model of that articulator. So all of the physical functions that exist on that articulator, we have parameters in the software for that. So this is a highly adjustable articulator model. And that brings our total number of articulators up to 20 in the software. So we have a lot of articulators integrated now. Denture module. Full articulator used in conjunction with full dentures. So just some improved functionality with opening the bite during the model analysis step. You have new options there. That little cutout panel or cutout window says bite opening, so you have some more options of adjusting your bite at that point before the tooth models are loaded. Denture teeth are loaded at the next step. We've integrated Ivoclar clinical process, so the Ivoclar UTS CAD device. This is integrated in the generic version of the software, so there's a workflow for using this. If you have users that are using that Ivoclar process for dentures. Model Creator. New integration in Model Creator with the Amann Gerbach print and click model base. So this is a pretty neat system. So this will generate model bases that'll have receiving parts for it's a magnetic system, but those model bases will fit directly into our text articulators on the compatible bases, the base plates. Some technical updates in the software. There is a new exocad framework file. So if you're installing this version on your system, or if you have customers that are testing the software in their environment, just make sure you're downloading and installing the new exocad 2025 framework file. So there's a link in the release notes document, I believe, for that. Or if you have it bookmarked from the previous framework, just change the date. It's the same link. You just change 2024 to 2025, and that'll get you the new framework file.
Yeah, and Lucas, to add on to that, on the initial email that was sent out on the 10th of July, there should be a link on there where you can select to see all the new features here, and that'll bring you to the PowerPoint that also has that information for the framework.
Yeah, yep, good point. So you can get to the link through that PowerPoint.
And download the software. So check your email if you haven't installed the public prototype yet.
Yep.
All right.
Moving down the screen, so DentalDB might run slow, so it does some changes the first time you start it up, especially if you're linking it to an existing CAD data folder. It will update the database schema for changes in the work ramps in the new version. Windows 10 and Windows 11 are still compatible. Those are supported operating systems. Windows 10 for a little while longer. I think support's ending soon for Windows 10 from Microsoft. But Microsoft.NET 8 and .6 are supported. Oh, .6 ended in November 2004, so .8 is the current version that's supported in this Chemnitz release. And then Visual C++ 2022 is required on this system. Cybersecurity documentation. You can access this in the secure site, the EULAs and documents about cybersecurity information. You can get to that on the secure portal. Frequently asked questions. Just some key things about cybersecurity. As always, we recommend to use the latest versions of the software. The exocad software is updated to be compatible with the latest versions of operating systems and security features. We recommend the latest antivirus tools installed on a system. And then just make sure the Windows operating environment is fully up to date and a supported version, just to eliminate any support headaches that might come up with a unsupported operating system environment. Yeah, again, just some more information about the cybersecurity. Make sure all the Windows security updates are installed for your drivers and operating system environment. Latest framework of the software is installed. Microsoft Windows operating system must be protected by a password to prevent unauthorized personnel to access the data on the PC. So sometimes we get questions about, if there's multiple users on a system, is it possible to lock so only one person can see cases and then the other person can't? So that functionality is not inherent in exocad, but you can do that by setting up multiple users in Windows. And then, of course, make sure BitLocker is on if you want to encrypt the data on the system. All right, so that is the end of our presentation here. Let's switch over and take a look at the software. Any questions coming in so far, Dan? You're doing good on that side?
Yeah, overall everything's going pretty good. Just I've been answering them as they're coming in. So there's a question about the new split bar workflow, and we can actually see it in the notes here, but you do need the modules for bar and implant to be activated for that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not going to be a separate module itself. It'll work with the existing bar and implant modules. So as long as you have those on there, you should be able to use it.
And just another note that one of the attendees noticed that the library manager for downloading implant libraries in the prototype isn't available. So that is known. With this being a prototype, there are some functionality that hasn't been added to the prototype and will be for the final actual public release. So, as of right now, you'll just have to either download the new libraries from the website and install them manually into the public prototype installation, or if you had recently downloaded them on 3.2, you could potentially copy those from that folder. But as always, just don't copy the whole library folder from one version to the next. There's some files in there that really control functionality. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't get rid of Library Manager. It's coming back. It just didn't quite make it in the release process here. All right, so let's go into some demos to show you some of the new features here. So the first case we'll take a look at the split denture bar workflow in DentalCAD. So there's a demo case already in here. So there's a completely new demo sample for this that you can use to test out the functionality. So it's set up as an anatomic wax up and Pontic wax up set up here. There's a new feature, a new button up here. So after you select a tooth and your material, you have a question over here under options and parameters that says design bar. So you have no, yes, and yes in wizard. So for this workflow, we have that toggled on to have the bar design steps show up in the wizard for that. All right, so let's click design. I'm going to start the workflow over from the beginning. So in this demo case in the software, there is a scene file there that has a wax up already designed. If you just want to quickly get to the split bar step to show that for your demos or training. But for today, we'll go through the whole process and just design a tooth setup and wax up. There's a couple features I want to show you in that workflow. So I'm going to load scan data only. I'm going to skip loading my previously designed tooth models. We're going to load some new teeth here. All right, so I have a pre-op scan here. It's already in the correct position. We're going to skip that. We don't need to do smile creator or tooth segmentation at this point, so we'll skip those tools as well. And then Cloud AI Design shows up for the wax up positions over the implant sites, but we're going to skip that. So we'll show you AI design on a different case. All right, when you get to emergence profile step, there's a couple ways to handle this. So some of this is going to be just a little bit of review of previous tools that are just useful and needed for the bar design step. So at the emergence profile step, you have the option of skipping it, and then your emergence profile will just go down to the edge of the implant interface at the edge of that NUA part there. Or you can plot a margin line here if you want to use the tools in the software for managing the tissue at that site. So you have the abutment bottom tools that you can use for contouring that surface if you do draw this line here. All right, so tooth 19, we'll skip it for our anterior tooth positions and draw it again for tooth 30 over here. So it's placing 4 points. The software draws that margin line, and we're good to continue here. So the tooth library step, it's loaded the default tooth library. Now, of course, we can change that in settings to change your defaults here. So I want to show you some of the new libraries that are in here. So, of course, there was Philippidus in the feature release of 3.2. But in this version, we have the Inspira libraries over here and also Trebos libraries. So there are a lot of libraries included in the software now by default.
Yeah, and those additional cutback libraries that are available with Inspira, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very happy about that. So
yeah, right. Before there were only a couple libraries that had the cutbacks for thimble bridges, but now all those have it, so they have a lot more options there. All right, so we're just going to use the pre-op scan and just use that to get our tooth set up in place here. So on the advanced tab, you may have noticed that there are some new tools here for symmetry and mirroring. We're going to go through those in a little more detail on a different case. For this, we're going to just get our tooth set up quickly into position. We'll use chain mode here. And just looking at my centrals and using the blue disc back here, get my molar in position. Probably all familiar with chain mode at this point, so we're just using this. You can set lock points here, so you can turn a dot to red, and that acts as a pivot point. So I'm just using that to kind of scale the posterior section of the teeth here. Lock that blue disc into place, and now I can just change the contour of the curve of the arch over here. Then, of course, your control key for rotating teeth, shift for scaling, all work in chain mode here. All right, it'll work. We just need a general position here. All right, I'm going to save tooth models. I happen to have save tooth models for all workflows turned on in settings. So that was in the previous version. So that's why this message is coming up. So I'm saving my tooth models in the project folder. All right, so at the above and bottom step, for those teeth that we drew that emergence profile line, you can use the control points here to adjust the position of that bottom surface. And then for the ones where we didn't draw that emergence profile line, if you wanted to, you can manually edit that bottom surface there. Totally optional depending on your design. You can expand that out. You can hold the control key and add different control points here. And that way you can kind of custom contour the margin position and change the height here as you need to for the case. All right, for the other ones, I'll just leave those as is. All right, the freeforming step, I'm just going to go to the free tab, and we'll cut all intersections. Keep going here. Adapt to pre-op scan. I'm going to skip that for this case here. All right, when you get to wax up bottom step, this is the bottom surface of our wax up design. So for a scan like this, we probably don't need to adjust it, but I just want to take into account the contours of the ridge and where the appliance will be resting and set up your insertion direction appropriately and calculate that wax up bottom surface. So the software is going to block out undercuts and make sure the appliance will fit correctly over the ridge. So of course you have your freeforming tools available after, so if there's any areas that you need to manually adjust the block out on, you can adjust that with the freeforming tools after. So it's almost done calculating, then we'll have that light blue offset surface for our wax up here. All right, when this question comes up, this is asking, based on our tooth selections, do we want a single gingiva shape for the whole arch, or do we want separate gingiva for different tooth numbers? So for this type of design, I want to click that top option. We want a single gingiva section for all teeth. When you get to this step, we need to click points on the scan, and this is going to be the starting point of the gingiva design, so where the gingiva is going to contact the jaw scan. So depending on your design that you're looking for, maybe for hygienic situations, you want to minimize that contact surface with the ridge, depending on the design goals for the case. Draw that outline appropriately. Of course, with the freeforming tools afterwards, we can kind of really contour that gingiva, and we can make it rounded and really minimize the contact surface if we're looking for a super hygienic design. But that'll be a good starting point here. So after the gingiva proposal generates, you can, of course, move these points if you need to. So a lot of times it's hard to tell at first where you want to place those until the gingiva generates, and then you can get a better idea of where the points might be placed. So you can just left click and adjust those points. You can click in an area where there is no point and add an additional one here. You also have some controls for your material thickness over here. For the gingiva, let's click the apply button to recalculate if you've made any changes at that step. All right, so our new gingiva proposal will finish here in a second, and then we'll keep going. And then freeform gingiva design. Let's turn off our pre-op scan. Use the P key on the keyboard. So there's a new function here. So at the anatomic tab, so this is where you have the click and drag tools. Previously, you just had the small and large region there. Now you have you can use the shift and the mouse wheel or the slider over here to adjust the area of material influence here. So if I hold down the shift key, scroll the mouse wheel, and I can now move to small to a super huge region on the fly as we're using that click and drag tool. So that's really useful. You're not fixed to just those two selections here. So if you click those buttons, you can see those correspond to some presets on that size scale now. So now even the large region, you can expand that to even quite a lot bigger, depending on what you're trying to adjust here. So let's go around and kind of fill in the gaps here. Jump over the free tab real quick and smooth this out a little bit here. We add a little bit back here. All right, so a little more smoothing over here, then we should be good. Keep in mind you can uncheck that box that says keep bottom and boundary fixed if you want to adjust that bottom portion. So we're talking about smoothing out these edges and stuff like that. So you can do that if you uncheck that box there. Click next and keep going. So now it's going to calculate our wax up. So it's going to merge all those separate tooth models and merge our gingiva into a single wax up mesh, which is the requirement for getting to that split bar step. So once this calculates, then we're kind of at the starting point for that scene file. So if you're using that demo case that came with the software, you can kind of jump ahead if you don't want to go through this whole beginning part. But for the purposes here, I just kind of want to show you what the requirement is for that bar step. So we just took you through the whole wax up design process. It does work with the scan of a wax up also. So we're going through a case where you design a wax up. We're still kind of working on how that will be handled in the software in the next version, but it will be able to accommodate scans of wax ups also. All right, so a little more calculation time on our wax up here. It's almost finished. Wax up's done. We're going to click next here. So that's the free-forming step. Yeah, this is another opportunity you have here to clean up these edges also. We won't spend a ton of time here for this case, but so you know that that additional freeform step does come up after the wax up is generated. So we'll click next here. All right, so then we get to the fun part here. So this is the bar design step. Because we set that option in DentalDB, so this shows up right after we freeform the wax up. So the bar design step shows up, and the key feature here is this additional tab over here that says split. So that is going to take you to the new design function of splitting the wax up into those separate parts here. So there's a lot of new parameters and a lot of things going on at this step here. So there's some parameters that kind of control different aspects of how the automated bar shape gets generated. I'm going to leave those at the default settings for our first calculation here. This bottom drop down where it says only use bar top center control, ignore bar 3D shape. What that is saying is underneath the wax up, there's the traditional bar proposal underneath. So the software is going to ignore that for now, and it's going to generate a completely new bar shape underneath the wax up, kind of a curved, sometimes described as organic shape. So it's kind of a natural, I'm going to draw the curve first. So you get a little warning here. The separation can't happen until we click the add curve button and tell the software where we want that split boundary to take place. So before we click the apply button, we want to draw a curve on here. So you can place this, you can experiment with different designs. I know Dan's played around a little bit with incorporating posterior tooth in this. You can move it a little further up on the lingual side if you want to have maybe a supportive border on the lingual side. So depending on your design preference, you can experiment with where you're placing that curve here to split the wax up.
Yeah, like Lucas was saying, if I see some popular design styles of including the molars in with the bar itself too. So you would draw your spline, in your embrasure in between your molar and bicuspid as an example, and then you can have that generate as well. So that's
Yeah.
a pretty cool functionality and stability that it's actually able to generate that with all the different geometries and kind of going over all those different shapes. So there might be some minimal smoothing you got to do if with that type of design style, but still a pretty impressive that software is handling that kind of operation.
Yeah, this tool's really is fantastic so far. Um, so now I drew that curve. Now we're ready to click the apply button and generate a bar here. So it's going to take that line that we drew. That's going to be the separation boundary of the two parts here. So it's going to generate a bar, and then the bottom surface of the bar will be the area enclosed in that blue spline. And then it's going to generate kind of that curved top part here. So now we can see, let me turn off the wax up for a second. So here's the first bar shape. So this is default settings, ignoring the original bar proposal, and you get a pretty decent result here. So good amount of surface area. So talking a little bit about the parameters over here, you have some minimum thickness of the anatomy layer, so the upper part. We'll take that into consideration when it's calculating the shape. And then you have minimum thickness of the bar itself, so the bottom portion. And then you have some other parameters that kind of control how this shape gets generated. This is still an area that we're working on refining for the final version. So definitely test this out. Give us some feedback if something's not working correctly, or maybe you have a case or a scenario that you're having a hard time figure out what the settings should be. So give us some feedback there on how to improve this step. So this is a completely new tool in the software, so the development team's still trying to work out exactly how to present the settings here, how to name them, and what makes sense to be able to adjust for these. So definitely give us some feedback there. If something is not doesn't make sense, or maybe if something's not working correctly for your case, definitely let us know. All right, so let me just show you what other options exist in this little drop-down box down here. So we use the first one, only use bar top center control curve. And then you have a few other options down here that they're just different variations of considering a 3D bar shape in the calculation of the bar, the overall bar calculation here. Meaning that if I go back to the profile step and we take the time to do a bar design here. I'll just kind of quickly set this up here. I'll raise up this posterior one, then hold down Control and Shift and level out all of our control points here so we have a level top surface. We'll turn on our planes and adjust the insertion direction arrow and raise this up a little bit. For the profile edge, this primary bar shape has sharp edges on it. So a lot of times for these, if you're doing zirconia top part, you want to have smoother edges. So if you go to something like this shape and just decrease your radius a little bit, you'll have rounded edges on that bar profile. Make it a little more ceramic material friendly. So then here, just your normal design, bar design step here, we're just adjusting the position of the control points. Bring that over the ridge. And of course we can turn on our wax up shape for visibility to see where the bar material should extend. And then adjust your pillars. So there's a lot of control points that get added to the pillars by default, so we can adjust the taper here. Make sure that material stays within our wax up shape. All right, and then let's taper this one a little bit. And jump over to the advanced tab, and this is another feature you can use to make it a more curved profile. So we can click on the rounded button. That'll get rid of those edgy transitions where your control points are. And then I'm going to click the pull down button, so that will extend our material down to the gingiva in the scan. All right, we'll work with that. So after you've completed a bar design here, jump back over to the split tab. And then when you calculate, before you hit the apply button, choose an option down here. So and choose a second one down. So they're just varying degrees of how much it incorporates that exact shape of the bar in the design. So I'm gonna choose the third one down. Consider bar 3D shape more exactly, and then click the apply button. So the software is going to take that bar shape, and then down towards where we've plotted that curve already, it's going to extend the material out and create that margin. So it's kind of a combination of what we calculated first for the bar design and then our traditional bar design that we're all used to. So it's taking that and adapting it to a split curve that we placed on the wax up. All right, so here, let's turn the wax up off. So here you can see what happened in that design. So we still have that kind of natural curve shape that the software generates to match up with the control curve. And then we have our bar design that we did previously kind of incorporated in there. So it still needs a little bit of work, so we can clean that up in the freeform step with the smooth tools coming up. But in general, that is the purpose of these options down here. When you're testing this out. Your curve, you can still change that at this point. You can adjust those points if you need to change that margin and just reapply it if you need to. All right, so we'll keep going here. I'll click the next button. So here you have a freeform bar step, so we can jump over to the smoothing tool and clean this up a little bit here. Any of those sharp transition points, anything. You just want to be careful about that edge down here. So that's not protected here. So if you have a nice margin edge that we've created, you just want to make sure you don't wipe that out. But any other surfaces here, you can clean that up. And the top portion will just get adapted over that. Whatever adjustments we make here will get incorporated into the underside of the top portion that's going to get calculated here. All right, that's good enough. We'll hit next. So we have actually a bottom step, and we're going to be able to add cement space here. So manufacturing parameter, right? So depending on how the top parts are fitting to your bars, you adjust your cement space here. It'll be a little trial and error process, but it'll figure out what generates a good fit for your production process. And then we'll go to the merge step here. All right, so what we see on the screen are merged parts. Let's look for that calculation to finish, and then I'll show you a couple things about working with the screw holes in the top part here. Oh, yeah, freeforming step. So before we get to that merged, we can freeform the top part. So I'm not going to make any changes here. Everything looks good based on our previous design, so we'll keep going. All right, now we're at merge and save. The software is going to generate the screw holes to our top portion. And this was in the previous version, but just a little reminder, you have a separate screw hole tab over here. So if for some reason you wanted to turn off the screw holes for a certain position or adjust the diameter of the screw holes, you can do that here. So you can expand the selection for individual teeth here and adjust parameters. If we want to have no hole through that tooth, you can toggle that option here. You can change the offset and diameter here as well, and then just restart merging to have those changes take effect. So there's some good functionality over managing the screw access holes here. All right, we'll just let that recalculate for a second here, and then we'll close out, save my scene file, and I'll show you the STL files that get generated for this type of design. So we're back in DemoDB, and I click on Open in Explorer. And the part labels, so we have a bar, SLM CAD, and then a wax up CAD here. So let's take a look at those in the Exo viewer. So there's our bar design. And then we'll add in our top part here. So you can see how those are fitting together nicely. There's the internal portion of the top part of the bar, so it's adapted up exactly over our bar shape. All right, so that's split denture bar. Before we take a short break, any urgent questions? Dan, anything interesting coming in?
Well, I'm typing away here, so thanks everybody for asking the questions. There were some questions revolving, around parameters and
Yeah.
The fit between the parts, which Lucas, you just shown that there's that the bottom step after the bar generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's seems like a fair amount of questions about kind of initially about the shape of the bar proposal with that first behavior you did. So if you want a specific geometric shape or profile, then you should utilize that bar profile option so you can incorporate
Yeah.
that with the split bar. So other than that, there was a couple of specific questions that I think we'll have to kind of follow up on, just to kind of see the behavior
A little more
that
in-depth stuff. Yeah.
the testers are seeing. So, and I should just note to everybody, if you guys are testing, first off, thank you for testing. The support team and definitely the development team, they're looking for feedback. So if you see a behavior that you don't quite agree with, understand, or you're having any issues, just
Mhm.
please save a scene file, and then have those ready to kind of submit to our support team. So you could just create a new ticket with our team, tell us what behavior you're seeing, or maybe it's a feature that isn't involved in the split bar feature that you want, an additional parameter or something to make it. I should put it, more easier
User
or user friendly. There we go. Thanks, Lucas.
friendly.
So just send us that feedback, and we'll be happy to look at it. And yeah, so.
All right, sounds good. So we'll take a short 5-minute break here. So stay tuned. We have a lot more good stuff to go through afterwards. So a couple more cases to go through. So we'll break for 5 minutes. We'll get our virtual coffee cup up here and see everybody in a few. All right, we are back. We'll get back into it here. All right, so that was the split bar case. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit and go through a lot of new features with the abutment design module. So we'll open up another case here.
Lucas, while you're loading that, we did get a question on when the version's available, for end users. So at this point, we can't disclose like an ETA for the actual full release of the software. But the public prototype, for you resellers on the call, you do have the option to distribute the public prototype to the end users. It's just, I would just throw that disclaimer that it's not really intended for production at this point. So if you have some trusted end users that really want to help test and give feedback,
Mm-hmm.
of course, please do so, and then kind of filter that feedback through the reseller and submit a ticket to us at that point, or they can send directly, the end users can send that feedback directly at feedback@exocad.com. So just figured I would kind of
Yeah,
brief that
yeah,
because that's always
definitely.
a popular question, when anytime we have a prototype or getting close to a release.
Yeah, why can we give it to the users? Yeah, so they can use it just for testing. All right, so this case here, this is our custom abutment demo case. So we're going to show a bunch of things here on this case. This is probably one of the older demo samples in the software. It is on stone models, but we're going to demonstrate some of the model creator features here as well for this case. So we're going to click design and jump into CAD here. And we're going to see some good stuff. So we're going to load just the scans. Skip loading library teeth or previously designed teeth. All right, so the first step that is coming up here is cloud AI design. So this is a good example of how we can do this for multiple tooth units. So our 3 posterior units, we can get AI ground designs for those, and our single anterior unit. So here, this part isn't new, but just a little reminder about some settings here. You can choose a specific tooth library if you want to use that as a starting point for the AI crown design, or you can click on auto detect and let the software decide what fits the scenario best. Over on the parameters tab, I'm just doing a quick adjustment here. So my distance to antagonist, I'm going to change that to 0.1. I'll change my distance of contacts to 0. And click on request CAD calculation. So that's a little reminder about the cloud tools. These are in your settings for CAD. There's a cloud section there to turn these features off and on. And then over on the toolbar on the right side, you have a little progress bar of the CAD calculation. Some new things here. So if you right click on this, there's a tool that says show current cloud operations. So if we click on that, we could see that we have a couple crown calculations in progress. So it batches the adjacent teeth together. So 3, 4, and 5 are in one group, and then we have that single crown 8 up there. And then show available cloud services. So this is just all the cloud services in general that are available on a system. And then the last option is a speed test. So it'll measure your current speed throughout the cloud server. All right, so we don't need to wait for these to completely finish. So we're going to click the next button and keep working. A couple of them are ready here, so we will accept those for now. And then the ones that are still calculating, we'll see those in a little bit. So we can keep working and do the scan body alignment step while we're waiting for the rest of the cloud calculations to finish up. All right, so this is completely new here. So like I said, this is probably one of my favorite new features here. So at the detect implant position, we have boxes here for each tooth number. So if I click on select prosthetic component for tooth number 3, we have this UI that opens up. So I have a few libraries that are installed. As Dan mentioned earlier, library manager button is missing from this, but this will be available later. So that's still the preferred way to, for end users to get libraries in their system to make it a little more trouble-free. But for now, for testing, manually download libraries from the website, add those to the library folder in your software, and then you can use it with any of the currently available libraries that we have. So right away, see a lot of things going on in this window. So up at the top, we have a search box. So here you can start typing in, brand name, name of a system. You can even type in specific part numbers or article numbers. So a lot of libraries are compatible with that. Not all libraries are compatible with part numbers yet, but a lot are. So, and then you have next row down. So here it's just showing all of the components I currently have installed. So those are all listed in a row here. And then the section below that are buttons for individual suppliers. These supplier buttons act as a filter. So if I click one of these, so Keystone, for example, now it limits my view up here to just those that are in that particular Keystone library. Same thing if I click on Nobel, it toggles to the brand filter that you click on here. Right below the search box, this is where your filters build up. So when I click on one of these buttons down here for supplier, it's applying a filter for Nobel Biocare and only showing those parts here. If I want to cancel that and just go back and see everything, just click the X button on your filter there and get rid of that. So now that is basically a reset. So now it shows all the components. So in the search box, you can start typing in part numbers. So depending on the article number, let me get more specific here, 301, 101. So now that filters it down to the specific Nobel Biocare part. So that's super useful if you know a part number that you're looking for. You can search that way also. All right, so let me close out the filters here. Another thing you can do here, the star buttons. So we still have those to mark favorites here. And then to apply the favorites filter, it's up here to the right of the search bar. You click that, and it's going to show you just the ones that you've starred here. All right, so then click that again to turn off the favorites filter. To the right of that area, you have a filter box here, and you have other types of ways of sorting the parts here. So you can sort by connection type, prosthetic part type, part angulation or screw channel angulation. For example, if I click on tie-based prosthetic part, it's going to show me only libraries that are of that particular part type here. And then I can continue filtering that down. Maybe I just want to see Nobel Biocare tie bases. So now I have two filters being applied, tie bases, Nobel Biocare, and here's the results here. Here's the parts that fit that. So this is pretty amazing. So interface for finding parts here. For a demo case here, let me click on the exocad one. We'll pick our exocad demo library. So then depending on the system, you'll have your sub options down here, right? So these will be different diameters, and different platform options will be down here after you select a specific component. In the lower right corner, you can use the right mouse button. So I hold this down, and you can use the mouse wheel for zoom. So you get a nice 3D preview of the actual component there. So you'll be able to see what it is, and then you have a link to the supplier website here. So make it easy to get back and find more information about the parts here. So you click the apply button on the one you want to use, and then at this point you can left click on the scan body for that tooth number to do the matching. In the settings panel, I have automatically show colors for abutment alignment turned on. That's why that color map showed up here. Otherwise, it's still the standard shortcut key of holding the control button as you do that alignment step to see the color map there. So I go to tooth 5. It automatically remembers the previous selection. So it defaults to that. If I want to use that part again, I'll just click apply and match up the scan body for number 5. Click number 8. Click the scan body, so now those are all matched up here. All right, so we have all 3 scan bodies matched up. We'll click the next button here. We'll draw our emergence profiles, which are basically the starting position of our margin for the implant abutment. So we're just placing 4 points and letting the software detect that edge of the gingiva there, and we'll use that as our initial emergent profile starting point. I'll repeat that for tooth number 5 position here. And lastly, number 8. All right. Abutment bottom step. Let's turn off our model for a second. Not much new here, so just a quick reminder of the controls here. So minimize our jaw scan, opacity. So here, the control buttons are fixed to the gingiva. We kind of mentioned this on the bar case here, but if you hold down control and click that disc underneath, it unlocks everything. So now you can adjust the margin position and make that subgingival if you need to. We'll increase the material towards the implant interface a little bit here. The advanced tab is a reminder if it's a compatible system. This is where you can access your angulated screw channel tools here for adjusting the screw channel emergence from your restorations. Otherwise, this is pretty much unchanged here for the bottom portion of abutment design. So we'll keep going. So that's bringing us to the Cloud AI design tool, just bringing us back here so we can do the approval of the designs that came in. So we have our 3 posterior designs that came in and tooth number 8. So over here in the wizard, we're still looking for feedback about the AI designs. So you have the 3 buttons here to select if you're happy with the design, or if you need to customize it at tooth placement step, or if you want to reject the design, and then a star rating, expand that, and you can provide more specific feedback here about the designs also. And you can also customize that for each tooth positions. So previously, back when I was showing you the other options for AI design, a couple of the designs finished already, so I already approved those. So now it's asking me to approve teeth 3 and 4. So in this drop-down box up here, you can select individual teeth to approve if there's one that's going to work for the case and one that's not. So you can choose, or you can accept them all as a group here. So for teeth 3 and 4, give these a rating here. Click next, and we'll use those designs for the case. We'll save those in the project directory as my tooth models. All right, so then it just brought us back to abutment bottom step here. Again, we kind of went through all that stuff, so we'll just click next and keep going here. Freeforming step, let me just take a quick look at, we'll adapt our pontic to the gingiva. Occlusion and contacts. And we'll just do a quick freeforming here, quick smoothing. Touch up our contours. Okay. All right, that'll work for our purposes here. All right, so secondary insertion direction. If you remember, this is the step where you're setting up the insertion direction for the top parts of the abutment. So since we're generating those synthetic tooth preps, from scratch, we can set the insertion direction for those any way that we want to. That's appropriate for the case. So T3 and 5 were already set up as insertion direction for bridges, and I probably don't need to change that. Maybe tilt it back just a little bit. And then up here, you can change to different tooth numbers. So we can go to tooth number 8 and adjust the position there if we want to. Now, when we get to the abutment design step for the top parts, you can also adjust the insertion direction at that step now also. So I'm going to leave it alone for now, and we'll take a look at how we can adjust it later when we get to that top design part. All right, so then we get to the good stuff here. So abutment design. tab. Let me turn on our jaw scan. So right away, our abutment proposals are looking pretty good. So it's not using the original design feature. So by default, it's using what we call standard design for the top parts. So it's a completely new way of generating the shape and the proposal of the top parts here. So in this, we'll kind of work our way through all the tools and settings here. So in that drop down, you have a few options. There's 3 different options for the mode of generating the top parts. So you have angular design and then cylindrical design. We'll kind of take a look at all 3 of those there. Below that, this is super useful here as well. You have a parameter that we can now use for setting the shoulder size. So you're no longer kind of randomly adjusting the control points and making the shoulder width. You can set that via slider or type in a parameter here, and then all your abutments will update as you change that. So you can get really precise, nice looking shapes here with that shoulder slider. The round angular slider, this is grayed out for this particular mode here for standard design. If I choose one of the other ones, I'll do that in a minute. So this parameter will become active. So it's only needed for certain types of designs here. And the minimum angle, of course, is your sidewall, axial wall angle. Also useful here, we have the pop-out images. So you can see exactly what that parameter is adjusting. So that's useful as well. All right, so this was standard design. So let me just take a peek at, so if we change this to angular, for example, the software will regenerate the top parts of the abutment and their shape changed a little bit. And that one gives you access to this slider here that controls that top edge. So if we move this to the left, that will make that a little more rounded. If we move this slider to the right, you get a sharper, more angular shape on the edge than overall for the abutment. So it's a little more square shaped for anti-rotation purposes. So that's under angular design. And then under cylindrical design, that makes the abutments a little more rounded in their overall shape. So a little more smoother, rounded profile around the edge there. All right, for our design, I'm going to go back to standard. You also have the legacy 3.2 option here. So if you prefer the previous design mode, you can switch back to that by clicking the legacy button there. All right, so standard design, let's take a look at the control points here. Another thing you'll probably notice, instead of 3 rows of control points, there's only 2 now, so that's been simplified a little bit. So you have the row of control points down towards the shoulder and the margin, and then you have the control points towards the occlusal surface. So these work the same way, click and drag, vertical or horizontal direction. You can hold the control key and click on that line to add another control point if you need to adjust their position. One thing that is new here, if you hold down the control key, when you're clicking on those horizontal ones, you can rotate the entire top part of the abutment also. And then you'll see some messages popping up here. So there's little helper messages. So if I move this over, there's some messages if you're pitching on the minimum thickness towards the center, or if you're going over the edge of the margin. So they try to be a little more informational messages as to what's going on with the design as you move those points around. All right. Another thing that we can adjust here is so a couple more things. So I have those huge numbers up here showing the degrees for the angulation of the implant itself. You can turn those off now. So if you right click in the background and select show hide tooth axis, you can click on screw channels and that turns the visibility of those arrows and those degree numbers off. So sometimes users will complain that those are in the way, especially if you're looking top down on your designs, so you can turn off those numbers and get those out of the way. Let's take a look at our anterior abutment here. It's poking through my tooth model. Obviously not ideal, so this is a good scenario where I can right click here and go back, and we have a tool here, secondary insertion direction. I can get back to that step quickly without having to go into expert mode or anything. And zoom in a little bit. I can left click on this arrow here and adjust my insertion direction, either view based or by toggling or moving that control point, and then click OK. It's going to recalculate my abutment design, and now it's in a more appropriate position for that restoration there. So now I have a nicely shaped, supportive abutment that fits within my tooth design. And this is a real quick adjustment just by adjusting the insertion direction there. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. So another new feature, we have these green discs above the vertical arrow here. So this one's for adjusting the height of the abutment. If I click this one, it quickly toggles to a flat occlusal surface on the abutment. So it flattens it out totally. So that's what that disc does there when you click that. I'm going to undo that for a second. Another new feature is the Fisher line control. So it's connecting these 3 points here. So if I click one of the vertical arrows here on the Fisher line, we can adjust those control points all together. If we click and drag that center one. And that's a checkbox over in the wizard. So if you have that checked off, connect Fisher controls, those points will be adjusted when you move that center one. Another tip here, you can click and drag those gray arrows. So if you want to kind of change the shape of that Fisher line, so now it'll adjust those or reduce it in that particular shape instead of just a straight line going across. The other checkbox over here, so we just talked about connect Fisher controls. There's also another one here that says maintain constant shoulder size. If you uncheck that, that's if you want to get to a scenario where you have more customization over the margin and shoulder control points. So they're no longer fixed to that parameter that we had set up here, that you're now free to kind of adjust those as you want, which is a little closer to the previous behavior of the software. So if you want to unlock those control points around the shoulder, you can do that. So if I click it again, it will recalculate based on my parameter, and then those will kind of be fixed there to what that parameter was up here. All right, and then over on the bottoms tab, you still have access to the bottom controls here. So if you realize you need to change a margin position or something like that, so you can still come in here, adjust it, automatically gets adapted to your top part design. Advanced tab is still similar, so here you can get access to your margin thickness, your screw channel adjustment. For milling parameters, yeah, let's talk about this for a second. So this used to be an area that caused a lot of confusion sometimes in training. So we now have those animated GIFs here that kind of explain. So it's always confusing. Now, what setting adjusts the shoulder? What setting adjusts the occlusal edge and radius up there? So now it's really clear in those pop-out images to what those parameters are adjusting here at this step. All right. Running a little short on time here, so I think I covered pretty much everything that is new here. So definitely test out this module. Give us your feedback on that. So far it's been pretty good. So people have been waiting for some updates on abutment design for a little while. So now we have a really nice implementation of some new tools here. So definitely let us know what you think about those. So we'll keep going here. Freeforming step, nothing new here. So this is where you can use the freeforming tools on your abutment designs and make any further adjustments there that you need to, or add attachments. So have access to that there. All right, so our abutment designs are merged at this point. So now we're going to go through and design a model for this case. So when I click on design model here, we have a little drop down here, so I can switch between quick model or the regular full model workflow that you step through. So you can that's what the select option means, the regular model workflow. So we'll click next here, save our scene file. All right, so granted this is a stone model case, so I probably wouldn't need to be designing a model for this, but just for purposes of time, we'll go through and just show you some options here in Model Creator. So first off, on the model type dropdown, the names have been adjusted a little bit, try to make some of these a little more easier to understand with the terminology. So default model is the old plateless design, right? So that's just where the software generates the base completely down to a plane that you select, depending on how tall the model is. Then your quick model, which is the automated process that steps through the whole design. A lot of these are stuff that's already been in there. Names have just been clarified a little bit. One of the new things that we will go through on this particular model is the Armand Gerbach print and click feature. So this is a pretty innovative design. So this allows you to have a model base printed with a adapter plate that will fit directly to the Artex articulator for positioning that in the articulator. So we'll take a look at that. So below that, there's just some more brand-specific scenarios for different printers and different systems here. Avoclar models, so Coist alignment system is integrated. So a lot of different features here for Model Creator. So for the Armand Gerbach print and click mode, you have detailed, which walks through the whole process, and then the quick model, so which does that automatically. So just to show you a little better detail of what's going on, we'll step through the process. So as soon as we click that model type, you see the Artex articulator shows up on the screen, and then the stacks of the adapter plates here to fit the size of model that we're going to generate. So over in the wizard, you have a drop down here where you can adjust the spacing. So 40 millimeter spacing, 60 millimeter spacing. I'm going to increase it to 60. So we have more room for our implant model here, just to make sure there's enough room for the analog components to fit in there. So then you have different options here depending on the orientation of the adapter plates and where they're stacked, and you can change that around a little bit there. So this is really neat. So you can see the adapter plates and the interface there, so we can position our scans correctly in the right position according to the adapter plates here, and then software will generate a base that fits over that component there in that adapter plate. So we'll click next here. And toggle tooth dies. We don't need to do anything here. We'll skip that. It gets to plateless model design here. So we're going to we're just going to change these to using the abutment design as the die. So if you remember, you can click on the tooth models here, and if you have designed abutments already before you get to this step, you'll have an option here to use the abutment as die. So if we go up here and turn on our abutment shapes, we can see what our dies will look like here. So it's showing the analogs, but this process will override that. So it'll produce removable dies or create a solid model depending on which model option you pick. I'm going to go back here and just change the angulation of this one a little bit real quick. And then we'll click on create model. So it's going to calculate a model based on our default parameters for that articulator system. calculate separate die shapes and the holes in the model for those dies. A few more seconds of calculation here, and then we'll just calculate the opposing model. All right. All right, there's our maxillary model. So the height has been extended based on the scan position that we set up in that articulator before. So it's a pretty tall model section. And we'll just click next to calculate the opposing model. Let's use default settings for that. This one will calculate a little quicker. There's not as much going on this one. And then after this, we'll take a look at the attachments section. So there's some new things there. And mainly we'll see what this Gerbach attachment looks like for this model. Any other questions coming in, Dan? We're good there?
Yeah, so we've been getting some questions, some good feedback too. I think a lot of people really like the abutment top design portion.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
One of the questions that I think is applicable and good to understand, like the default model type, you can change that in DentalCAD app while you have the software open. You go to your tools, settings, add-on modules, and then within the model creator section, you can select a default model type for that. And then, we get some feedback on some things. So, and a question about the implant libraries themselves with needing updates. So I'll have to kind of follow up on that. I know our integration team's working on updating some stuff on our end. I don't know if the owners, I'll call them, or manufacturers that create the libraries, if there's any additional tasks on their side as of right now. I got to double check on that.
Yeah, if it's about a specific library, we'll have to follow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right, so we're almost finished our model design here. So let's take a look at the attachment here. So the Gerbach print and click attachments selected already. So it's kind of a complicated attachment. So we have both additive and subtractive components for this this attachment. So where this gray surface is, that's going to be subtractive cuts. So there'll be some notches up here. And then there'll be some support arms, so the kind of transparent beams down there to support the structure in the middle. Otherwise, we continue to improve and add the pop-out images for all these here, and you have the smaller secondary images for each one, so you can see what's included in here. The sharer plates, I think those are new, so there's some new stuff for attachments. Otherwise, we'll click the next button and just apply this Gerbach attachment. On the text attachment, it's the same, so that's for adding your text labels to models. That's still in there and unchanged. So this is calculating. It's like a few seconds. That's kind of a complex attachment shape to calculate here. And let's take a look at what this model looks like, and then we have one more case to go through for some other new features here. We'll take a look at a splint design after. All right, so here's our calculated model. So there's that ring structure in the middle that will match up with the adapter plates, and then you have the subtractive cuts that have been added in here as well. All right, so let's close this case and bring up our third and final case. For this one, we're going to work with an anatomic splint sample. anatomic bite splint. So this is where we're generating a bite splint and replacing library teeth and then incorporating those into the splint design. So we're going to show a bunch of new things in here. Again, some different new tooth library, new articulator, and then some of those new tools for adjusting tooth positions in the place model tooth step. So this one's set up as anatomic bite splint. We'll click design and jump right into CAD here. We'll also be able to take a look at some of the new automated splint margin design tools in this case also. All right, we're going to skip loading previous tooth models. So for the jaw motion case, this is a Zebras case, so that's why we see this bite fork alignment step here. So that first alignment step happens automatically, so click next here. This is a scanner type SD Zebra, so we'll choose that option here. So that list is getting pretty big, so we have new options that kind of went quick through, but we have compatible with a lot of different jaw motion capture systems now. So this bite fork alignment is a point-to-point alignment process here. So we click one point on the top item and 1 point on the bottom, and that alignment looks okay there. All right, so then tooth segmentation starts calculating automatically for the lower arch here. So this is important for the splint design step. Once the teeth are segmented, the software has the individual tooth information, and that's what it can use to automatically draw the curves for the bite splint proposal. So just take a look at here, make sure the teeth are segmented correctly. There's a little bit of overlap on the gingiva back there, I noticed, but we'll just leave that there for now. That won't affect our splint design too much here. So that's another note about tooth segmentation. So that is an AI cloud service. Tooth segmentation is free to use, so there's no exocad credits involved in that. So feel free to use that for bite splint cases, and your customers can use it as much as they need to. All right, so then we get to the virtual articulator step. We're going to click on Start Virtual Articulator and take a look at a couple things here. So the one we have set up by default for this case is the new Cavo Pro Evo 7 articulator. So that's the 20th articulator added to the software. So we have a lot of controls with this one. Side shift, your Bennett and condylar angles, incisal table, table inclination, opening a bite. For this particular case, we have digital FaceBow data that's been exported from the Zebra scanner. So I'm going to click on Load Jaw Motion or FaceBow Data, select our jaw motion file, and all of our parameters here change from the defaults to settings that were imported into that digital FaceBow file. So that's how we get a more accurate setup on the articulator specific for that patient. So the scan position's been updated and settings on the articulator have been adjusted. For the splint case, I'm going to utilize the opening of the bite function here and open the bite 4 millimeters. So we have some material to work with for our anatomic bite splint, or some space to work with, I should say. Jaw selection. This was new in a previous version, but just a reminder that you can select which jaw moves in the articulator simulation. So you can move the mandible instead of the maxillary arch, depending on visual preference. So we'll click OK here to save the articulator calculation and click the next button. All right, design bite splint bottom. We're setting up the insertion direction of the splint. Just a slight change here. The set insertion direction from view, the button changed, so now it's towards the top of the wizard panel. You also have a little legend up here telling you the undercut color markings. That's what that color is indicating on the scan surface. And then you just click the apply button to generate the bite splint bottom surface. Not much new here. So this is where you handle the basically the fit of the bite splint. So you can adjust your offset and block out angle and so forth, depending on the fits that we're getting for the splint. We'll keep going here. All right, so for this case, I'm going to jump back to the simple tab, and I'm going to switch from the generic tooth library, and we'll switch to another one of our new selections here. Maybe another Inspira library. So after we change our tooth library, going over to the Advanced tab, I have incident anatomic morphing already turned on and selected here. And then for chain mode, jump over to that tab. There's a new checkbox down here. It says incident anatomic morphing, and if that's checked, you can see here if I move the teeth up, they are adapting to the antagonist automatically. So that's a new feature for chain mode here. There's some settings related to that. Let's jump over to the tools panel real quick and go to settings. And we'll use our trusty search box up here and just start typing in instant anatomic morphing. So there's a setting here, use instant anatomic morphing in chain mode, toggle that to on. And that way that'll check that function on at that particular step. And then right below that, you have a couple other options, default adapt mode for tooth placement or single tooth placement. So the software breaks up those steps depending on if you're in a single tooth case or a multi-tooth case. So you can choose your default instant anatomic morphing adaptation mode here. So those were the settings I had on in order to get this step to load in that way, so that it just does instant anatomic morphing automatically when it gets to that step. So we'll go into chain mode and kind of adjust our tooth setup real quick here, and then I'll show you some of the other tools under the Advanced tab. So this is pretty neat. So using the left mouse button, just adjust the position of the tooth arch, and as soon as I let go of the mouse, the software calculates the entire arch, instant anatomic morphing, and kind of corrects the overall position of the tooth models here. So test it out. You can certainly, again, in settings, you can change that. You can toggle it off if you don't want that on by default. Let me switch over to single tooth mode and rotate centrals a little bit here. Some other minor adjustments. All right, so let's go over to the Advanced tab and take a look at the tools over here. So there's a section here called Symmetry. So the first button on the left side here says Anterior Symmetry. If I click this button, you get this disc that shows up at your midline between your centrals. Let me turn off the opposing scan for a second. So what's happening here is when I left click and drag a tooth, it's mirroring that movement across the midline to the other one. So anything from holding the control key to rotate and morphing, that's all being mirrored across the midline. And then with these arrows on this disc here, I can click those and move. If I click the blue dot in the middle, if I click on the arrows, I can rotate the anterior section. And then from this direction also, the purple arrows. And then the other button here, one-to-one mirroring, allows you to use those mirroring tools for other teeth, so for your posteriors. And then the other useful thing that happens here also, so you can also use the click and drag tools here. So the morphing tool. So if I click and drag, it's also mirroring that function across the arch also.
That's probably one of my favorite new features. That's huge with tooth placement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat once you get used to it. So just some more tools to add to the arsenal here for speeding up and making it a little more flexible for these big tooth setups. And then of course you still have your abrasion slider here. You can adjust anterior or posterior and adjust pointed versus flat tools here if you want to use that to adjust your occlusion as well. We'll keep going here and adjust our splint design, calculate the top part here. We'll adapt our tooth models to the articulator. All right, so now we're at design bite splint top step. So right when you get to this step, the software has selected a margin. So that happens because we did the tooth segmentation earlier. What is different in this version is we have a ton of additional options for adjusting basically how the software sets up that margin or curve defining the edge of the bite splint. So again, we have some nice pop-out images here that will show you the different options. So these top ones were included in the previous version. So you can see on that top view in that diagram, the position of the blue dots. It's kind of subtle, but some of these, so this one is just dots on the facial surfaces of the teeth, buccolingual, and then this next one down will have additional points going in towards the interproximal areas. All these have little subtle effects on how it creates the edge of the bite splint. And then you have a bunch of new ones down here, so you can select straight anterior sections for the splint, equator aligned. So test these out. So how you use it is you just select a different choice from the list here, and then click on detect margin, and it will update. So I've clicked on one that was a straight anterior option, so that made the line pretty straight across the anterior section. And then you have some other parameters here, and these parameters might vary depending on which option you picked in that drop-down list. So now I can move the posterior section just for the anterior section up a little bit. Click on detect margin a little bit. So now I have a little less coverage on the anterior section of the splint here, and then the posterior is still fuller coverage. So depending on your design goals and need for the appliance, you have some more flexibility here for how that's handled. Surface properties, I don't think anything has changed here. So this is your material thickness and smoothing settings. Include palette if you need to, if your design is going to be going down to the palette surface. Let's click the next button to calculate the splint shape here. Freeform bite splint top. Different there. We'll calculate our bite splint shape. All right, well, that's calculating. We got a few minutes left. We're pretty close to the end of the webinar. So that was pretty much all of the new features that we wanted to show you at this point. So just a little last opportunity for questions, or if there's any other topics you want to jump in with, Dan. One thing. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say nothing real major popping up. I think there was some a question that just came up if there's like any plans or timelines on like a full AI generated splint. Other than the AI proposal, it's done off the tooth segmentation, and we don't have any information on new services that will be available in the future. the only thing we can really share is our development team is heavily committed to improving and offering other AI services in the future. So, again, I would say, like, any feedback on specific AI services you think would be beneficial for your production or your customers' production, please share that information with us, and we can forward that to the development team.
Yeah, good point. Yep, we're always looking at ways to expand it, but yeah, right now they're more focused on kind of just increasing the functionality of the automated proposals for splints, so that should help out a lot, but it's not fully automatic yet.
So, and this question just came up about the split denture workflow, to where if you didn't define the bar option in the Dental DB, would it be available via expert mode? And the answer is yes. So when you design your wax up, after that's completed, you'll be able to enter an expert mode, utilize the bottom expert mode toolbar or the context menu by right-clicking in the background, and you'll see bar design.
Yeah, that's the key part. I don't think it will show up until after the wax up is designed. I think that's the key part there. Yep. Cool. All right, we'll close out of this case here. Anything else that we should jump in with?
We just got another question that came in asking about updates for partial CAD. So as of right now, we don't have a public prototype distributing for partial CAD 3.3 Chemnitz, but similar to dental CAD, it's very far along with development. It seems very stable. So I don't know if there hasn't been any I guess announcements internally that I've heard that we'll be distributing a prototype as well, but it's very far along.
Yeah, there is a reference to partial CAD 3.3 in the release notes for this public prototype of dental CAD, so it is in the works. So hopefully it'll be timed around the same time, so we'll see.
Yeah. And then in those change logs or release notes that, like Lucas was mentioning, one of the big features for 3.3 partial CAD, it's going to share that split denture functionality. It's just a different variant, so users will kind of be able to kind of utilize the different workflows for different situations. And at the end of the day, it could fall down to a preference as well. So both workflows are pretty slick, and we got a lot of great feedback at IDS when we were demonstrating those. So and then another question about 3.3 exoplan and partial CAD release. If it's going to be released the same time as dental CAD, we don't necessarily have that information on. I think in a perfect world, everything would be released on the same day, but with different software and development going on, typically that doesn't happen.
Yeah. All right, everyone, we're about the end of our time here. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully these new features are exciting for you guys and your users, and let us know what you think, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.